Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome all of you today to our biannual Distinguished Speaker Series event hosted by our Center for Leadership Studies in the Guarini School of Business. I hope everyone is well and staying safe, and thank you so much for joining us today for a very exciting session and speaker. A special welcome to our St. Peter's University alumni, as well as our students, our faculty, and our administrators. We have a great speaker with us today who is a leader in the Jersey City community that you will be introduced to in a few moments by Professor Butkus, our founding director of the Center for Leadership Studies. The Distinguished Speaker Series is designed to bring in speakers from business, from military, from law enforcement, sports and entertainment, healthcare, and other industries and professions to our campus, which today happens to be our virtual campus. The Center for Leadership Studies also provides a vehicle for research and thought leadership, and it also demonstrates our continued commitment to our Jesuit mission and developing learners and students to excel intellectually, serve compassionately, and become ethical leaders. We're very honored and pleased to have a brave and distinguished leader here with us today. For all of our students in attendance, please be sure to listen and take away leadership lessons to apply in your lives and your future professions. And I would ask everybody to please activate your cameras, again, so our speaker today can see our St. Peter's community instead of just your names on the screen. I also want to share our website for the Center for Leadership Studies in the chat. Sharing that right now. And I invite you after the session to please visit the website where you could find recordings from prior events, and you could see some examples of student research on leadership that is housed in the Center for Leadership Studies, as well as some of our featured students. And now, without further ado, I would like to welcome Ray to unmute and introduce our distinguished leader and speaker today. Thanks again, everyone.
Well, thanks, Dean Natus, for that very warm and gracious introduction. And I'd also like to extend my thanks to all on the call, faculty, administrators, alumni, staff, and most especially to the students in attendance today. So why don't all of my leadership students, either current or former, give me one of these. Give me a nice big wave here so we know who you are. Yeah, very good, very good. In founding the Center for Leadership Studies, I was certain that the creation of a Distinguished Speaker Series was absolutely central to its mission. By bringing leaders to campus to share their perspectives with the St. Peter's community, we seek to illuminate the rich and varied tapestry of leadership excellence. In that regard, we wanted speakers who have excelled in a variety of leadership situations. And our speaker today is certainly emblematic of exactly that. As Dean Natus mentioned, thus far in this series, we have been privileged to hear speakers from business, from education, from the military, from entertainment, and from sports. And today we welcome an outstanding leader from the public service sector. My leadership students know that I frequently use firefighters to illustrate various principles of leadership. You know, one only has to consider the tragic event in Rockland County a few days ago to recognize the inherent danger of this profession. For those brave men and women, there is no such thing as virtual office. There is no such thing as social distancing at work. Early in my leadership course, I often pose this question: is the exercise of leadership mostly rational, or is it mostly emotional? Most students assert that leadership is a rational undertaking. I then ask, is it rational to enter a burning building at grave peril to one's own life or limb? Is it raw emotion that draws the firefighter into harm's way? Or is it a bit of both and something a great deal more? And it is that something more that makes firefighters and their officers such outstanding exemplars of leadership excellence. Today's speaker is one such exemplar. He is the chief of the largest fire department in the state of New Jersey, with nearly 700 firefighters. He has risen through the ranks in his 34-year career with the Jersey City Fire Department. He joined the department in 1987 and was promoted to captain in 2001. He was made a battalion chief in 2010 and deputy chief of the department in 2016, and he's served as chief of the department since 2017. A lifelong Jersey City resident, he's a graduate of St. Peter's Prep, our little brother. So he understands the value of a Jesuit education. He received a BA in economics from Seton Hall, but we won't hold that against him. And a master's degree in fire protection management from John Jay College. And I would point out that's one of the most distinguished such programs in the world. At his swearing-in ceremony, Mayor Fulop described him well when he said, quote, "He is a man who has dedicated his entire life to making Jersey City a better and safer place," close quote. He is a man of conviction, of courage, and of dedication. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all unmute just for a moment and give a very warm welcome to Chief Stephen McGill.
Thank you.
Take it away, Chief.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and I'd just like to thank the staff of St. Peter's College for giving me this opportunity to present my reflections on leadership. And firefighters are pretty down to earth, and we don't really like to hear things that you were saying about me and the fire department, but I'm very humbled to be involved in this and being invited to this. And I just want to thank the university and everybody at St. Peter's College and everybody who's watching now. And I hope you get something out of what I'm going to go over. And I really appreciate being here. And on behalf of the mayor and the Jersey City and the Jersey City firefighters, we just thank you for your interest in the fire department. Reflections on leadership. I'm going to go over a couple of things. I have a PowerPoint. I'm not going to do death by PowerPoint with you. It's just got some photos and some video I'm going to refer to as I get along. You already went over my history, so I'm not going to go through that. But I will say along the way of all those 34 years, every rank I've gotten to, I've studied probably 2 to 3 years and read 8 to 10 books, probably 5 or 6 times for each rank I went through, starting with captain. That was the hardest. I probably studied for about 3 years, literally 4 or 5 hours a day for 3 years straight. My wife hated me when I took up the whole dining room table with books and yelled at her to leave to not disturb my studies. But it's a long, hard process. And along the way, you pick up new pointers and things on leadership, and you develop your leadership through those years on people you work with and meet. And I'll talk about a couple of those things as I go through my presentation. But part of my history was early on when I came on in '87. I actually had to go an extra semester at Seton Hall. Maybe that wouldn't have happened at St. Peter's University, but needless to say, I had gotten called for the fire department during my last semester, my 5th semester or 5th year, I guess, at Seton Hall. And I graduated both the training academy in the daytime and Seton Hall. I went to night school to finish my electives and get my economics degree. So in November, I graduated from the fire academy. In December, I graduated from Seton Hall, and that started my career. It was perfect timing. At the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so fire department came, and I jumped on that opportunity. I'm kind of a go-getter at times. I get restless and I get really bored or I lose my train of thought easily when I'm not doing things. So by year 3, 1990, I wanted to either go to law school or do something else. So law school wouldn't have me. So basically, I took the route of going for my master's degree over at John Jay, which took me about 4 years. And I did that at night while I was working as a firefighter. So I learned a lot over there. It was a great institution. And that helped me progress throughout the rest of my career with that background. I was lucky enough to have a relationship with the fire director at the time. He asked me to come down after I graduated from my master's program in 1994 to be part of his staff. So I worked in the director's office as a firefighter and a public administration officer and various roles in administration for about 5 years before I got promoted to captain. And I went back into the real world of fighting fires, and we call on the line, in the line of duty. And from there, that's where I really started to learn my leadership skills. From my first spot at Squad 4, that was a very busy area in the middle of the city by Communipaw Avenue. We went to every working fire in the city. And we also backed up our rescue company. So we did a lot of different tasks, which made it interesting for me. But one of the first things I realized, that was an area which I was not familiar with. So what do you do as a leader? You go to your source, my crew, my firefighters there, and ask them about things that are going on in that area. Anytime we had a call or a fire, we'd get together and say, all right, what's the best way to get there? Do you remember that building? What do you think is in there? What do you think we're going to come across? So it wasn't like I was just going to say, no, we're going to do this, this, and this. As a leader, I thought, let me get their input and their say and let them get involved in what we're doing. So when we get to a fire, we're all on the same page and we know we're all thinking alike and doing the same thing. So through that, as a captain, those years as a captain, I took a lot of things from other captains that I had worked with in the past, the chiefs that I worked under, and you learn a lot of different leadership skills, and you take that as you go on through your career. Biggest thing I could say, also, as I was doing a lot of those at Squad, other things, I still got a little bored. So I was able to do, I was actually hired by the previous administration as the emergency management coordinator. So on my days that I wasn't in the firehouse, I was doing a staff position as running emergency management for the city, which was, gave me a lot of interesting take on how the administration works in politics and how you deal with other agencies, because they coordinate most of the agencies in the city, and learn to network. Network is a key thing in any type of leadership role, because you're never going to know everything. And you definitely need to reach out to others, definitely in different professions and different areas, to learn from them and see what they have that can help us, the fire department, or what we can do for them to help them. So it's a good relationship back and forth. You know, over the years, I worked at Squad. Then I was able to be asked to become an arson investigator. So I actually had to go to 21 weeks of a police academy and learn law enforcement, how to shoot a firearm, how to make arrests, all that type of stuff. And that's all part of an arson investigation, which I still do to this day, even as a chief, because I enjoy that. That's one of the good things on the fire department. It's very interesting. You're taking pieces of a puzzle and putting them back together to find out why a fire started and how to try and prevent it again. I was a union delegate. I worked as a fire inspector, training instructor. I have all my certificates. I was able to be asked, because I have some law enforcement also, to be part of the Joint Terrorism Task Force in Newark with the FBI. So I assist them in matters that happen in this area. And a lot of the other things, all those things I did, all along the way, I always made contacts. I always reached out to other people, made sure I was available to them, and made sure that they would be available to me. So now anytime something happens in the city, a major event where you have multiple agencies coming in, including the FBI, whoever it is, I pretty much have a face and a name of somebody in another agency I can talk to and say, hey, this is what we need for us, or hey, what do you need from the fire department? So it's a good way of making relationships as you go along. Fire department leadership is, I'm not going to say easy, but it's kind of written out for you already. We're structured like the military. They call us a quasi-military department, And it's not just because we wear uniforms, but it's a rank structure too. So we went over the ranks of, I was a firefighter, then a captain, then a battalion chief, then a deputy chief, and now chief of the department. Each of those ranks has certain responsibilities. And like I said, each rank I was in, you learn more and more responsibilities and you hone your leadership skills as you go along the way. One of the easiest things I can say to anybody is how I learned my leadership style was from other people I worked under. Battalion chiefs I had different ways of doing things. I chose what I thought were the better things that motivated me to do things, and that's what I project onto my subordinates that I oversee. So there was a lot of learning as I go along. Fire department, you have a chain of command, so it goes up and down. So I'm at the top. I deal with deputy chiefs below me. They deal with the battalion chiefs. The battalion chiefs deal with the captains deal with the firefighters. There's also what we call a span of control, which means you don't want to have too many people under your supervisory care to the point where it gets overwhelming. So in the fire department, it's usually 3 to 7 under each supervisor. So a captain usually has about 3 to 4 firefighters under their command that they oversee. The battalion chief now is in charge of a fourth of the city, and he has about 6 or 7 or 8 captains under him that he oversees, and each of those captains have the 3 or 4 firefighters. Then when you get the rank of deputy chief, now you're overseeing the whole entire city if you're a line deputy chief. So now that deputy chief oversees 4 or 5 battalion chiefs. So that span of control, if something crazy happens or an incident, he's only talking to one of 4 people, not 70 or 80 people that are at a fire scene doing something. So everybody gets a role and everybody has a place. So that leadership is kind of already set up. It's a matter of how your subordinates look upon you as a leader. And that's what you have to get. That's where you have to learn your own skills and ability and persuasiveness to get people motivated to do what you want to do, because running into a burning building isn't the safest thing in the world to do. We're trained to do it. We really don't think about it. Maybe some do, and we have to give a little prodding, but as long as you're a good leader, those people are going to follow you in there. And I'll give a good example of, actually, I'll wait. I'll go to some videos in a second, but let's see. We'll do that now, actually. Let me see if I can. I'm going to test out my screen sharing capability because this is my first time doing this type of stuff. But this will kind of give you an idea of what goes on in the fire department. This is a fire we had a month or so ago. Hold on, let me get it from the beginning. It's a month or so ago on Martin Luther King Drive where we had 2 fatalities, unfortunately. But if you can see, there's firefighters dragging a hose line in, advancing that hose line into a fire, right into the flames, into that building to put that fire out, to save the 2 people that were still in there. Unfortunately, they perished during this, but this is what we do. You see a fire, you don't hesitate. You go right in. Why is that? That captain, who was one of my firefighters when I was at squad, I'm proud to say, he learned under me and we learned together. This is what you need to do. Just get in there, put that fire out. The faster that fire goes out, the more likely you are to save a life. One of my proudest moments was, see if I can get that thing to stop. One of my proudest moments as a chief was that captain and the other captain that came in on rescue that actually found one of the victims was another one of my firefighters. All the firefighters I had at my first bid spot as a captain at Squad 4, all those 4 firefighters as of last year were all promoted to captain. That was probably one of the proudest moments I have ever had as a leader, knowing that or hoping that they learned something off me, and that's why they progressed in the department up to that rank. Hopefully they will become chiefs someday too. But you know, these are the type of things you'll see on a day-to-day basis in the fire department, and I'll go back to that, something similar to that video later on. But I hope that has a little bit of impact. But you know, as was mentioned before when I was being introduced, yeah, is it rational to go into those buildings? Probably not. But you know what? We don't think that way. We're there for a job. This is our job. We don't look for any glory or anything else. We go in there, we do our job. We don't fear anything unless something really bad is going on. I can't remember the last time, except when I ran out of air a couple times, that you actually think, oh my God, maybe I'm not going to get out of here. You're there to do your job and just get it done. And you're there to lead those people under you and make sure they're safe and they get out okay. That's part of the leadership in the fire department. I mean, one of the bigger things, you try and motivate them as best as possible. My way of motivating my members is to try and get them involved, make them feel they're part of the team, make them feel they're having an impact on the fire department. There are numerous ways of doing that. One of the things I did when I first became a chief is I noticed a shortfall in an area of peer-to-peer counseling. So when we go to fires like this is a great example where we had some fatalities and members found two of the victims. Most firefighters, we think we're tough guys and girls, and things like that won't affect us. But there's a cumulative effect over the years that you don't realize, almost like in the military, a PTSD type thing, where you hold things back, your emotions, because it's tragic to see a victim that's burned and see the family afterwards that's distraught because they lost somebody, and it builds up. And when I first came on the job, there was a person in the county who used to go around and talk to people and mentor them, and it was a peer-to-peer thing where fireman to fireman, this is what you're going to go through. This is what it is. Don't feel bad that all of a sudden you're having dinner and you start crying for no good reason because these things are building up in you and your emotions. So that was one of the things. I got a couple of my chiefs involved, and they got some firefighters involved. So now we have a full-time peer-to-peer group within our department that helps everyone out. When this happened, all those members that dealt with the victims and the people that went into that burning building, they were met by the peer-to-peer group after that to see if there were any issues and let them vocalize on what was going on. That was a huge success, I think. Last week, one of the chiefs that runs that peer-to-peer program actually called me and said, can I go out to, I believe it was Karlstadt, where a child was ripped apart by pit bulls in the backyard, and the fire department responded there. And that was a very traumatic incident. So I said, absolutely, call their chief, see if they want our help. And they went out there, and it was a pretty much of a success of just allowing us to come out there and share our experiences with them and let them know that we are there for them. We call the fire department a brotherhood or a sisterhood because we are family. Once you get on the fire department, you are always a firefighter, no matter what. And you are now my brother or my sister, and we try and take care of each other. And it doesn't matter if it's the fire department in Jersey City or somewhere else. We all deal with the same thing. We all work together as one. As I became a captain, there were different things I went through. You learn a lot more as you go up through the ranks. So when I became a battalion chief, you get to see a lot more things outside. So a battalion chief, the city is broken up into 4 quarters like a pie. Each pie is a battalion. And on each tour of duty, which there are 4 tours, that battalion chief oversees his battalion. So I've worked in a couple different battalions. My best one is where Squad 4 worked when I was in the 4th Battalion. But when I first became a chief, actually I was an acting chief. I'll share the screen again if I can. Figure out where that is. Am I still sharing the screen now? No, I can't. Let me see. Hold on.
No, you're not.
Oh, yeah, I see it. I got the arrow down here. All right, so this will be this one. Like I said, I'm not going to do a death by PowerPoint. So when I was an acting chief in the 3rd Battalion, which is in the Heights section of Jersey City, we got a call early in the morning for a major gas leak. The gas leak happened to be in an old pizzeria, and there were some residential apartments above. This is actually the fire department and the police department emergency services bomb unit going in, because as you'll see, this was not an accident. What had happened was, so here's the old pizzeria. What we ascertain is that there was a tenant landlord dispute with the owner of the building and the pizzeria person. So the owner of the building, we believe, tried to make it look like this pizza person was going to blow up or firebomb the building. So he was trying to set him up. So when we got to the scene, The glass by the exit door, that's on the Palisade Avenue side. That's how you would get into that building. They had roll-up gates, but they were already rolled up. You can see the roll-up gates on the windows already down. When we got to the scene, first units went in, heavy odor of natural gas. So we knew there was some kind of gas leak there. The unique thing about a pizza parlor is the pizza ovens are powered by gas, so you have very large gas lines in there, gas mains coming in. So you had a substantial amount of gas leaking in there. Units, fortunately, were able to get through the building, open up some back doors, start venting out the gas to make the air to fuel mixture a lot safer. But just so happens at that time, when I got to the scene in the front, one of my captains got there and he was going to force entry into the front door. What's the easiest way to force entry into that front door is basically break the glass, put your hand in and open the door. I went back to my schooling and training and said, one, pry before you try, see if it's open or not. And if you can't, take the path of least resistance. Don't break something if you don't have to. I already knew that they had opened the back door up and they were already venting out the gas. So I told the captain, no, do not break that glass. We don't need to do any further damage. So he didn't. Right about that same time, we see the owner of the building on the other side of that door doing something. Now we know it's a dangerous environment. We're wondering what he's doing there. We're yelling at him and screaming at him to get out. So we finally get him out of the building. Lo and behold, when we go back inside, let's see if I can get this to advance. There's a gasoline bottle at the bottom. You see some wiring and stuff. Basically, what he did was he made an IED, an improvised explosive device. So there's a wire going into that gas tank, which connects up to by the door. You see some underneath that white little thing. That's two wires that are spliced, one plugged into the ceiling where a neon light would go in. And if you open that door, that's going to make contact electricity. Electricity is going to go into that gas tank, explode the gas tank. It'll blow up. With the mixture of all that natural we there, that house would have been blown up, about 3 other houses probably, and every one of us would have been dead outside. So we were lucky. Lucky thinking off the top of my head, no, don't break that door. Don't break the glass. Don't open that door. Because if we had, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. That's just a close-up of just how easy it is to do something stupid like that. Went into the gas tank, and that's an actual X-ray photo from the bomb squad of where the wire went in and the amount of vapor in there. They said absolutely that was a viable device that would have exploded had electricity gone through that, and we would have been killed. So, that's just one of those little leadership things that you learn along the way, and we were lucky, no doubt about it. Luck is always part of that. Another one was when I was an arson investigator. Previous administration had eliminated the arson unit. They didn't think firefighters should be locking up people. They thought that was a police function. Unfortunately, in Jersey City, there's a lot of police activity and fire is not a top priority. Whereas firefighters, it is a top priority for us because that's how we get hurt. That's how people get killed. So we have a vested interest in investigating fires. So we had an incident where there was a carbon monoxide incident where 2 people had died within a month. We subsequently found out that was the 3rd person in a year that died in the same exact apartment. So the prosecutor's office asked to put together a task force. And because carbon monoxide is a hazmat and it's related to fire, I was the highest ranking arson investigator at the time as a battalion chief because we didn't have a unit. They called me in to put together a team to investigate this incident. First thing I did was, as a leader, talk to the prosecutor, find out what they expected of us and what kind of resources we can get from them. I got fire prevention involved. I got the police department involved. I got the building department involved because they have a vested interest in this, and also public service and gas, because this we believe it had something to do with a gas emergency. So what we did was put that team together. We went back into that apartment and we pieced together what had happened. So the woman who died in this situation, she had talked to somebody that previous night, and the person had said she had just taken a shower. She was feeling tired and was going to go to sleep. The person who died the month before that We didn't really have a lot of information on it. They thought maybe it was a heart attack, and then we found out same apartment a year ago, same thing. We weren't sure. They thought it was a heart attack. Long story short, we figured, you know what? I said, if the last thing she did was take a shower, let's look at the water heater. So we looked at the water heater, which you see next to the stove. And on top of it, you see a lot of gray or gold or brown stuff. That is heat backing in. So we figured there's probably a clog in that pipe. So let's recreate what happened. So we took measurements of this carbon monoxide readings. We had public service come in along with the building department, turn the gas on, turn the pilot on this thing, start running water and see what happened. Within a minute, the carbon monoxide levels went up to about 800 parts per million. And within about 2 minutes, it was over 1,500, I believe. So you start to lose consciousness at about 60 parts per million. And it's lethal over 300 to 600 in a matter of 10, 15 minutes. So what we believe is she put the shower on, this thing backed up. It created a large amount of carbon monoxide. We look toward the back. This isn't up to code. You have all kinds of things blocking the windows. The vent pipes aren't up to the roof. We looked out back. That's the vent pipe for that thing. It was a snowy winter, so we believe it was snow or a branch from the snow. Knocked that and made that vent into a cork. Part of the, before I go to the next slide, that cork, that vent, so now all the carbon monoxide stayed in that building. So because we put that team together, we were able to ascertain and figure out what happened. And part of the investigation, then it goes to the law department, goes to the attorney's office, the prosecutors. The owner of this building was cited for numerous violations. And if this would have been found out a year ago, you would have had 2 less fatalities, but it didn't. And unfortunately, so when I was brought to the deposition, because they were suing the landlord, the attorney came up with this photo that we had taken. And he asked me, he says, what's this? I said, well, these are the carbon monoxide detectors that the landlord had that we found in his basement that he had bought, we assume, to put in all those apartments that he had. Had he have installed these and not been negligent, those people would have been alive because these alarms would have went off. As soon as they saw that and they heard my explanation, they told me to leave. They called me back later and they said the landlord was going to settle because he had overwhelming evidence of what happened. So that's just an example of networking, leadership, how you get all these teams together and work together. And, you know, I was lucky enough to be trusted to lead that team on doing this. This is a fire I had on Belmont Avenue several years ago. It turned out to be a multiple alarm fire. The middle house, the blue house, light blue house, was where the fire started. This was actually an arson where they lit up the stairs and there were a couple of people trapped upstairs and they had to jump out the back. But the fire went up and it went to every other building connected to it through an area just below the roof we call a cock loft. So one of the things that I mentioned this is because when I got to the scene, there's a lot of stuff going on. I realized it was spreading to other buildings. I called more companies and extra alarms. And one of the ladder company captains got over the radio and said, Chief, can I do this? And I said, what do you want to do? And he offered to do what we call a trench cut, which I thought was unique in this situation. But I said, you know what? Go ahead, do it. Have trust in your members and your men and women, and let's see what'll happen. So I trusted his opinion on that, even though I couldn't see the conditions on the roof. And this fire was going good. One of the other leadership things I'll talk about real quick is that when the deputy chief got on the scene, he saw how bad it was. Well, you see those flames on that 3rd floor. That's where I was as a battalion chief with an engine company. And we were the last to leave the building. And I was actually the last to leave the building because I insisted, you know, the captain goes down with his ship, the battalion chief goes down with his house. So I wanted to make sure all my firefighters got out first. But we didn't know that was going on like that. On that top floor, there was fire all around us, but it was venting out. So we were called out of that building. Once we got out of the building, what you don't see as a chief a lot of times is what's going on up top. That's all fire venting through the roof. And a lot of that fire now is due to the fact that that captain had asked me to do a cut on that roof, which allowed all that extra fire and heat to get out so it wouldn't spread to other buildings, which was great. And this is the aftermath. So we call that a trench cut. It's like digging a trench, but you're going to do that on the one side of the building and the fire will come up instead of across and over to the rest of the buildings. So the idea behind that is, and why that's important, is leadership is not doing just what you think is right, but taking the advice and from other people around you, because you don't see everything out there. You have to take the word of someone else and say, okay, you know what? That's a great idea. Let's do it. Sometimes you'll say no, but in this case, it was a great idea that he went up and he made that suggestion. This is a quick video. I'll just see if I can get this to play. Next door, there was a security camera for the building. May not play. Anyway, it just shows somebody walking in and then stuff being thrown out. And what wound up being is people had a fight. The guy caught his girlfriend cheating on him or something. So he went with his friend and poured gasoline on the stairs to burn them out. And when we got there, the place was roaring. Another incident I had, this was a car fire. So this is when our arson investigators, they pretty much, this case went cold. They couldn't figure out what had happened. But so I got involved. And I like to get involved in a lot of these things because people learn from my experience, and I like to give them my experience and show them how things are done if they can't get it. So this was a girl was having a problem with somebody she had dated that was married. So she found out he was married. She wanted to stop dating him. He didn't want to. He got mad, so he figured, let me burn her car. Unfortunately, the week before this, her car was parked where this car is, and they poured acid on it, which did damage to the car. After that happened, she asked her landlord, "Can I park my car in your garage? I have a problem with an ex-boyfriend." They said, "Not a problem." They come back the next week, they pour gasoline over the car. It's not hers. This is the landlord's car, and they burn it. You just can't make this stuff up. So significant amount of damage. Good thing was, she had a nanny cam put in because she was worried after the acid was poured on. What you see here is a black mark on the ground. We call that a trailer. What happens is when you pour gasoline on the ground and you light a match, it actually burns the ground, so it leaves a mark. It's a trail of where the fire was. So you go, hopefully this one will play. No, all right. Something's wrong with that. Anyway, what happens is you'll see, if the video was able to play, person pouring the gasoline, trailing the gas, lights it, and you see the whole thing erupt in flames. And what we did was we saw where he was running. So a couple of days later, it was like a day or two later, I said, well, listen, this is what we need to do. Let's track down what he used. It looked like a water bottle. Let's find out where it is. So we went in every alleyway, every garbage can, all the way up the block to see if we can find some evidence. Corner building was an old bar that actually had all video cameras around it. We went inside. Lo and behold, what do we find? That kid running up the block, throwing something in that garbage can, getting into a car and taking off. So we went in there. What do we see? Empty water bottle. Put our gloves on so we didn't put any prints on it. Smelled like gasoline. Bagged it. Did what we had to do to properly send it to the lab. And what wound up happening was there were fingerprints on it, and it was definitely from that fire. However, it was probably a juvenile, so his prints weren't in the system, so that case went cold. But that was just another way of me getting involved and trying to be a leader and showing the detectives, listen, this is what you need to do, this is why you got to do it, and this is how you do it. There was another fire. I'll go briefly through this. I was coming back from a fire, and this fire came in a doctor's office. And quick little thing, I took pictures like we always do of everything, even if you don't think it's related. This is files in his office, in the bottom basement of the doctor's office. Lo and behold, what happens? He was being investigated by the feds for, I think, Medicare fraud. And he tried to say that all his files burned up in a fire. So he started that fire. And when we showed the evidence to the FBI, they were like, "Oh, these are all the files he said were burned." So he was, I think he was arrested, and he was locked up, and then he was deported out of the country. I think he was from Egypt. But little stupid things that you don't realize, that you gotta pay attention to the details And this is how these things happen. I'll go back to just for me again, but let's see, some other stuff that I've tried to do to get people involved. The insurance service office is what we call ISO. They evaluate fire departments and water supply systems to cities, and they give a rating. And based on that rating, that's how they base your fire insurance rates in a city. So Jersey City was either usually historically a 3 out of 10, 1 being the best. And what I did was I became chief. I got all my chief officers and captains together and said, listen, we need to improve on the department. What's the best way to improve and prove that we improved is go through ISO. So I got all the chiefs on board, and they did what they needed to do to get the training done, get all the paperwork and everything done for the ISO. Within a year, we were up to a 2. We're on track to be a 1, hopefully sometime by the end of this year. So, you know, in the beginning, everybody was saying, my captains and officers were saying, why are we doing this? Why do we need to do this? I said, well, we think we're number 1, right? Well, let's prove that we're number 1. What's the easiest way to prove that we're the best is through an outside agency affirming that we're the best. Not only that, they base everything on safety. And the higher your number is, correlates to safety. So if you do more training and you do certain other things, you have more hydrants, you have more fire engines, you have more firefighters, that's safer for everyone. You'll lower the injuries, you lower death rates, and you'll save and rescue more people. So they bought into that. I was able to get them to buy into that, and that's why we're a 2 now. First time in the history of the Jersey City Fire Department. I'm hoping to get that number 1 before I leave as chief, and I'll be around for a couple of years, but I want that done within the next year. So I'm still trying to motivate my members to get that done. There was an incident that I talk about brotherhood, sisterhood, and just tell me when I'm running too late. And if I don't have a timer, I look at it's 11:45, so I'm not sure how long I have.
Yeah, why don't go for another couple of minutes, Chief, and then I want to open it up for
Okay.
Q&A.
All right.
I know there's a question.
All right. Yeah. All right. So I'll cut it to just some of my other incidents I had. That seems, hopefully that'll keep people entertained. But let's see if I can get this one up. So this is that fire on Montgomery Street, on Martin Luther King Drive. So what that is, that was a body cam video from the police department. They got on that scene first. And we work well with the police department because we're all part of public safety. So we all play a vital role in protecting the city and the citizens in our city. They got there first, because they have patrols right in that area. They were able to break that door down after one of the victims had gotten out and the door locked behind them. That actually saved us some time when the fire department finally got there. And we were able to actually, that video we saw in the very beginning, get those fire hoses right through that door without having to wait for a ladder company to force that door open, get in, knock that fire down, and do a search to get people out. So just one of those things of dealing with, I deal with leadership in the fire department, but I also deal with leadership throughout the city and other agencies. So I always talk to the police chief all the time, see what he needs. We go through the same type of personnel problems, everything else. I talk to our emergency management person. I talk to our Department of Public Works director and all the other directors in the city, law department, you name it. Part of leadership is dealing with others, learning how to deal through the administration, not only with your own members and your own department. So you learn a lot dealing with the other people, and you bring a lot back to your own field by dealing with these other people. Anything else you want me to talk about, or?
Okay, why don't we open it up
Sure.
to Q&A? And you know, Chief, you know, we really hadn't discussed what the points you were going to make,
Sure.
but just so you know, during the course of your talk, you hit on 8 principles that we talk about in leadership here at St. Peter's.
Right.
The importance of seeking input from subordinates, the importance of seeking input from peers, networking skills with complementary positions, subordinate development and training, leadership by example. You talked about that, loud and clear. They follow me in. I'm the last one out of the building. The importance of skills and knowledge, calculated risk taking, and attention to detail. So very, very important concepts.
So what are the two things I missed? Give me another half hour, I'll probably hit them.
Yeah, right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's open it up to questions. I know we've got a lot of very bright students on the call. So who has got some questions for Chief McGill?
Can I start?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Trindalea's got one. Yeah, go ahead, Trindalea.
Okay. Firstly, I commend you because I don't think I can do your job. So
You'd be
thank you.
surprised, you could.
Seriously?
Yes.
Thank you for your service. I have 4 questions actually, so
Go
I'll
ahead.
just drop them down in the chat afterwards. The first question, would you change anything you've experienced? What are some leadership skills that you use with your subordinates? What motivates you to have the drive you have? And what are your
I missed the last one, but I think she put herself on mute.
She typed them in the chat. I don't know if you could see that, Chief.
Sorry,
yeah.
yeah.
Let me see. No, that's okay. Let me see if I can get this chat up. Okay, yeah. So would you change anything I've experienced? Listen, you always want to change something. You always think you're going to do something right. And, my wife teases me all the time because I always tell her I do everything correctly. And she always says, no, you don't. Even though you think you do everything like you're supposed to, you're never right. Yeah, I mean, I always say is, if I can get 50% plus one of the people to agree with something I did, then it's a win. There's always going to be people who disagree with what you do, and you always second guess yourself. And there are always things you want to change. Yes, I don't have anything in particular that I can think of right off the bat, but every day I deal with situations and decisions that I have to make, and it's not easy to do, and you hope you make the right decision. And listen, part of what we do is we also deal with unions. So the officers, fire officers have a union representative, and the firefighters have. So every day I talk to them too as part of my networking, because I want to make sure my members are happy or at least content. And if there are any issues, deal with the unions before it goes to the courts or the lawyers or whatever else, and see if we can hash things out to make things better for the people out there. So, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a time when you think you should have done something differently. And, but the key thing I always bring up is that don't let that hinder you. Make a decision. If you know your decision or you think your decision is correct, go with that. Don't second guess yourself, because if you do, you'll never make a decision, or you'll make a decision that you'll regret afterwards. At least if you come to an informed decision and you can have a reason of why you did that. One of the things I didn't talk about was how I get things done in the department is to talk to the mayor, and how I get him to buy me new fire engines or to hire more firefighters than we have right now is he insists on everything in writing, and give him. So I have to basically provide a narrative that explains in an expert way, because I'm considered the expert in the field as the fire chief, and explain why I need firefighters. Why isn't it good enough? Why can't I do what I have right now? Why would I need extra? Why do I need new fire trucks? So what I've learned to do is document everything, put it in a way that he can understand, and put it in a way where it supports what I'm asking. And 9 times out of 10, you do it that way. You don't give them an opportunity to say no to you, because then you'll say, well, why? I explained everything and the reasons why. So with this mayor we have now, he's been great with that. And I'm going to say probably 9 times out of 10 things I asked for in that way, he's either said yes, or he said, okay, let me look into it, or give me more information. So that's the answer to your first question. Yes. Leadership skills, if you want me to go through all 4 of them, is, so what are some leadership skills that you use for your subordinates? So I covered a lot of that stuff, but mainly my thing is motivation and trying to get people involved. You want, well, a little sports analogy, you want them to be part of the team and think they have some input in that team. So you give them assignments to do, or if somebody says, why don't we do it this way, chief? Okay, you know what? You go out there, put together a report on how you can do that and why that's going to work. And that works usually. They'll go out. If they're serious, they'll go out, they'll put something together and they'll want to get involved.
Why don't we go to a
Sure.
next question? Vinny, you got a question. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I do have one question. First and foremost, Chief McGill, thank you for this last hour. You definitely kept us all engaged. I know, having a short attention span, you did a great job with the videos and just providing concrete examples.
Thank you.
My question is, you talked a lot about trust and trusting your guys, your women, your team. Can you talk about how you gain that trust or allow your team to trust you, and how that leads and helps you become a better leader in your field?
Yeah, so easiest way for me is when we do training. So get involved with the training. As a chief, I don't have to rappel off a building with my rescue company or my squad company. But I learned it from my previous battalion chief when I was on squad. We would go to the one of the project buildings on Montgomery Street. We'd rappel out the 9th floor window and do training evolutions where we would rescue somebody on a lower floor and then go back down and bring them down that way using ropes and harnesses and stuff. And I learned from my previous chief that every time we did those, he was the first one that wanted to jump on those harnesses, because by doing that, you trust those people that are actually lowering you on those ropes, attaching those harnesses to you, because that's a huge trust that you have to put in those men, because if they don't tie a knot correctly, they don't get a buckle, you're going to fall out of that and you're going to get hurt or die. So I would always, when we did evolutions as a chief, and even now, that's why I still do arson investigations. I go out there, I go into the building after the fact and help them assist doing these things, because I want to show them that I trust them, but I also want them to know that I'm there to help them too. So even up until probably a couple of years ago, before I became chief of department, I would still go out when rescue went out, and I would put that harness on and look at them and say, you know what, if I fall, this is on you. So you show that trust that way. For us, like I said, a lot of the training we do is dangerous, and that's an easy way for me to show my trust to them and back and forth. So hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you.
It's an absolutely great example of leadership by example. Natalie had another one.
Hello. So first off, thank you so much for your service. Just seeing the videos and the photos, it really puts into perspective exactly what you do and what your team has done. So my question is, when you're in a situation where your decision is imperative, what does your decision-making process look like?
So what I try and tell my officers is, one of the things we deal with all the time is we talk on the radio. So when you get to a scene, communication is huge. Is probably the most important thing in firefighting, is that communication. In the old days, chiefs used to use horns or bugles to yell. Now the technology is radios. So the first thing I always tell them is, before you say anything, before you make a decision, think about it in your head. Go over it in your head first. Maybe even say it in your under your breath first before you even speak on a radio, because the first thing you say is the first things people hear. And if it's something that they don't understand because you didn't think it out, they're not going to get or learn or know what you want them to do. So yeah, the easiest to me, communication, it takes care of that. And that's key. So I've always done is, when I got to a scene and it's hectic and everything, you're getting information overload from everywhere else, you try and go think back to the basics of what the training was. So what's the number one thing you have to do in firefighting is protect life and property. So what's the first thing you think about is where do I have a victim? What do I need to get him out or her out? And what's the easiest way to do that? Sometimes the easiest way to do that is to get water on that fire. And what we say, put the wet stuff on the red stuff, is put that fire out and it solves all your other problems. Then maybe you don't have to worry about a quick rescue of that. However, sometimes that's not the case. And then you'll have to say is, okay, we have that. Although I have a lot of fire, what do I need to do to get that person out? Let me get that ladder company to put up a ground ladder or an aerial ladder to rescue them out of the roof. Or tell them, which is what we normally do, is follow that hose, that fire hose team going into the building. You follow behind them. They're putting themselves between the fire and the hose and the victims. And the ladder company now is going to go behind them, past the fire, go up and rescue that person. And hopefully by the time they get to that person, that engine company is putting that fire out. So there's a lot of teamwork involved and coordination. And yeah, a lot of times, there are certain chiefs that can't make decisions that quick. Hopefully after experience, they learn. But the easiest thing is as you go through the ranks, like I did, you pick up as much information, learn from other chiefs, listen on the radios. I always say to go to seminars, join associations, meet other people, and learn more from everyone else out there in the field. And that hones your skills that much better. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. Nicola, a lot of our students have 1 o'clock class, Chief, so we're gonna have
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
But Nicola, I see your hand up, so why don't you go ahead?
Sure, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I just want to commend you, Chief Stephen, and just tell you thank you for doing such a wonderful service to our community. My question is, what kind of educational services have you and your department put in place for the community in terms of carbon monoxide poisoning and against fire safety and for fire safety?
Yeah, so what we did when I became chief, I worked with my fire official who oversees the Fire Prevention Bureau. He was very proactive on wanting to do certain things. And as soon as I got in there, I met with him to find out what he wanted to do. And I told him, I said, listen, that's easy. Let's just do what we need to do. I had a good enough networking within the administration to get certain things done. So one of the first things we did was put together door tags that basically outlined how we would do fire safety inspections of buildings. So if you have a 1 and 2 family house that we normally don't inspect because legally we're not allowed to, if you allow us to come in, we would do a fire safety inspection and just point out, not give you violations or anything, just point out what you need, where you need a carbon monoxide detector, smoke detector. We actually gave them out for free at the time too. And we still have that program up and running if you know anybody who needs anything. We also did is we found out a lot of fires we had were from these surge protectors where you plug in 8 different devices into the wall and you get it at a dollar store and they burn and go on fire. They were causing a lot of fires. So what we did was we took some fire prevention money that we get from grants and we bought industrial strength UL listed surge protectors, power strips that we gave out to the community also. So if you had your laptop and your cell phone, your TV and your computer and everything plugged into that strip, we're going to give you one that's actually not going to go on fire because it gets overloaded because it's made somewhere that's not testing them. So, our Fire Prevention Bureau is pretty proactive. When the schools are in session, we'd go out to the schools all the time and give presentations. We started 2 years ago before COVID. We were going out in the summer months to all the community parks, and we'd set up tables for a couple of hours with our fire prevention and a couple of fire engines and trucks and just have a community meet and greet. We'd give out giveaways, plastic helmets for the kids and badges and that type of stuff. We also did some community relation type things. Like this year, it's our 150th anniversary. So what I did was I got the Jersey City Board of Education involved, and their students in their art program are designing a new 150-year commemorative patch for us, or a decal. So I got the kids involved, hopefully getting them involved. They see what the fire department's all about. They'll want to become firefighters. And so there's just that's just a couple of things that we do community relation wise. But I also had the city's communications person put links on the city's website on the fire, where you can click on videos of how to properly hang a smoke detector, or if you want a smoke detector out of our smoke detector giveaway program or CO detectors, you go on that link and you can put it in an application and get them. So there's a couple of different venues. With the internet, it's great because you can go right online and find out a lot of that stuff. Hope that answered your question.
Okay, well, unfortunately, we're out of time. I know our dean will want to offer some closing comments, but Chief, I want to tell you, this has been absolutely outstanding. There were times during your presentation, I'll tell you, I was on the edge of my seat. It was really an exciting narrative that you shared with us, and you were square on the money in terms of some of the leadership principles you talked about. So thank you so much, and I'll turn it to Dean Natus.
Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Butkus. And Chief McGill, I agree. Not only were we on the edge of our seats, but this was a really unique presentation because the type of decision making that you're engaged in on a daily basis is really life or death. And you know, you don't have the luxury of taking the time analyzing all the possibilities. So I think you provided a really valuable and unique perspective. And I want to thank you and everyone in the fire department for all their service, particularly throughout the pandemic, because not only are you putting your lives in danger every single day because of the dangers of the fire and the smoke, but also with the virus. So thank you. Continue the great work that you're doing. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here today with our students. To our students, thank you for your great questions, for your engagement. And we hope to have you back someday in person when that's possible. And we're really glad to be connected with you in the fire department. So thank you.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, whenever you need me, I'm here. So. at your
Thanks
service.
again,
Okay,
and
Have a
thank you all.
wonderful day.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Chief McGill.